The biggest secret, and again, we're talking about transfer of a way of life, right? The biggest secret around parenting and home educating well is mom and dad moving their own education forward and simply bringing the family along.
Welcome to the Mountain Tough Podcast, brought to you by Sig Sauer. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. I am Dustin Diefenderfer, CEO of Mountain Tough, and I'm so glad that you are here listening to these episodes week after week. It is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest every single episode to help you level up, to add some tools to your mental fitness toolbox so that you can stay dangerous and live that abundant life. If you are a new or loyal listener, and if you have a second, if you haven't done so already, and you could take a minute to leave a ranking or a review, those do mean the world to us. We love seeing your feedback come through on the show, how we can improve the show, guests you would like to see, and the rankings and the reviews through the algorithm allow these shows to get more out to more people to transform more lives. Also, additionally, if you do not know about it, as a Mountain Tough Podcast listener of the show, you do get an exclusive offer of 6 weeks free to train on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do to take advantage of that code is go to mountaintough.com, click Start Free Trial, enter the code MOUNTAINPOD, that's MTNPOD, all caps, all one word, and that's going to get you a full month plus the 14-day free trial, so 6 weeks of free training on Mountain Tough. That's going to unlock all of our programs, full gear, minimal gear, body weight, and it's going to unlock all of our holistic training. That's the mental, spiritual, physical. That will all be included in that 6 weeks. So check that out. If you haven't subscribed already, that's a great way to get started. Shifting gears over to today's guest. On the show today, we have Matt Beaudreau of Apogee. This is a phenomenal episode, especially if you have kids, young kids. I got the chance to meet Matt earlier this year and help him out with some of his men's group mentoring. He has a very strong passion for helping men be men. And also his day-to-day is around helping families figure out what to do with young children when it comes to the decision of school. So we talk a lot about what that looks like, what the current government school system looks like in 2024. We talk about some options. We get into homeschool. It's a great episode if you're making those decisions or need to make those decisions in the coming years with young children at home. So stand by for my conversation with Matt. Well, Matt, I definitely wanted to start with what you thought kind of the current state of school is, and I'll add some context to that and I'm really interested to hear your opinion on this too, because we are starting our 5th year of homeschool today with my family.
Awesome.
So my wife and I went down the homeschool route mostly because of COVID. We weren't talking about it much. We weren't thinking about it a lot until COVID hit, and we're in Bozeman, Montana, so our school system isn't bad compared to some other places in the U.S. But what got me was the COVID year happened to be the year that my youngest daughter would have entered kindergarten, and for me, it was kind of it was definitely a line in the sand that I didn't have to think much about. I was not going to send a 6-year-old to school in a mask. I just couldn't do it. I wasn't even going to think about it. And so then we went homeschool. And when we went homeschool, it was a temporary idea at first. It's like, hey, we're going to go homeschool. Let's see how this goes. Things are going to settle out. Some of this online learning is going to go away. The mask thing's going to go away. And then we can just return. And my family, we fell in love with it so fast that, now we're going into year 5, but, we fell in love with the flexibility and pouring gas on what they're most interested in and not worrying much about what they're not passionate about. And so we're loving it. It's been great. I know that, we probably are missing some components that that you're great about speaking around on also getting them plugged in to some other tribes. They're finding most of their tribe through gymnastics and rodeo right now, which is helpful. Um, but what's kind of going on in the school system generally as we get close to 2025 here stateside?
All my favorite. This is all my favorite stuff, man. And good on you guys for paying attention and for making the call and making the decision. Right. So I always like to preface this with a couple of things. One, I'm very pro good human, which means if you're a good human and you're a teacher or you're an administrator in the public school system, I'm on your side.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a good person who is parenting young people and deciding to send them into government schools, man, I'm on your side. If you're a good person, I'm on your side. I'm not on the side of the system. And that's what I speak to. So I don't want people to confuse, this as any kind of attack on any particular individuals.
Sure.
Um, but what we're talking about here is essentially a soulless system, and we're comparing that to parenting. And that's people going, well, no, we're talking about school versus homeschool. No, homeschool is just parenting. Home education, it's just parenting. That's all it is. You've been home educating them since day one.
Mm-hmm.
You just made the decision to keep going versus giving a nod to somebody else to co-parent with you. That's a different way to look at it, right? Because we're talking about building tribes. And I
Mm-hmm.
want this to be the foundation of this conversation because we're going to talk about the system here in a second. But, anytime you're building a tribe for your family and you as the leader of your home, you're giving a nod to who gets to speak into my child's life, right? G.K. Chesterton said it best. He said, education has nothing to do with a series of subjects. It's the passing of one way of life to another.
Mm.
So it's your job as a parent to pass on your way of life to your kids. It's your wife's job to pass on your way of life to your kids. Anytime we develop any other sort of tribe we're willing to send our young people to, we are giving them a nod to pass on their way of life to our kids too.
Mm. That's
We start
interesting.
there, right? So if you think of it that way, I think parents would be more intentional about, well, who gets to speak into my kids' lives and how often? Right? What is the percentage now I'm speaking into their life versus strangers or other young people, which again, it's not a bad thing, but if the majority of their learning really is coming through influence of another 5, 6, 7-year-old,
Mm.
okay, not saying it's bad, but is it ideal? Right. And so those are the conversations to unpack. So school in general, man, and you said, this system, we're here in Bozeman and better school system than other places. The system is designed the same everywhere. And I've taught in ganglands and I've taught in what we'd consider, socioeconomic Disneyland.
Mm.
The system's the same. The people there are different. The people make up the culture, but the system's the same. The system is, well, John Taylor Gatto said it's a 12-year jail sentence where bad habits are the only curriculum that's actually learned.
Crazy.
That's my that's my problem.
Mm-hmm.
It is that we pretend that this system, the way we've designed it, the way what I call the conveyor belt model, we pretend that being good at the conveyor belt model automatically means you're good at life, which is what it's theoretically supposed to set you up for. Those are two completely different games. Being one does not mean you're good at the other. Being bad at one does not mean you're good at the other. I want my kids to be good at life, and I want them to have the right people passing on their way of life to them.
Mm-hmm.
No way. Doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. I personally would give a nod to sending my kids to a government school if I didn't have to. Period.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the government is terrible generally at everything else we need to use them for, and everyone has had the DMV experience. There's plenty of those experiences. So why would school be any different?
Yeah. And if you look at the history of why it was designed the way it was, right? And that's what ended up getting it for me is I was working in that system and I could see what was effective with young people that I was working with, and I could see what was ineffective. And the majority of what was ineffective was it was the thing I was instructed to do. It was what I was told needed to be done. I'm like, well, that's not actually working.
Hmm.
That's not actually helping this young person. And hey, by the way, me pretending that what helps Johnny is the same thing that that helps Dustin. Well, that's not true. There are different points of their lives. They need a little bit different things. It's not true. It's not this one size fits all thing. And so I was seeing that there, but it was my willingness to go, okay, well, why do we do it this way? When you really dive into the history of this, you have a social engineering system. That's what this is. It's a behavioral management system.
Hmm.
That's what it is. It has nothing to do with child development. It has nothing to do with this is how people learn. It has everything to do with how to manage behaviors and set those habits that those behaviors stay long after the people leave that system.
Yeah, we've
That's a
definitely,
problem.
yeah. And we've seen that at our house where my youngest is completely different in so many ways than my oldest. And so the education style that we have to deploy on one child versus the other is night and day. Like even this year, we completely built their curriculums different based on who they are and how they learn and what they're interested in. And at school, you're definitely going to not get that. You're going to get the blanket that's trying to cover 20 kids at one time.
That's right. And you're going to get it all from the viewpoint that academia is what should be put on the pedestal and that everything else falls down from that. And again, I think that is something that's provably false. And I ask people to pay attention to themselves as adults. We use words in schools like, oh, they're at such and such grade level. You know, what grade are they in? And they're reading at this grade level. All right, cool. Hey, I'm 44. Am I at a 44-year-old grade level? Do I read at a 44? Do I make money at a 44? If I make a certain amount of money at 44 and somebody else makes more, does that mean they're ahead or does that mean I'm behind? How
Mhm.
do you like those are all weird concepts because they're not real, but we use those with kids in that system because all we're doing is comparing them to everybody else on that conveyor belt.
Mhm.
And again, pretending that that's what's going to get you, into life. I got straight A's as a kid. I was in that government. I got straight A's the whole time, man. And not because I'm not smart. I figured out the pattern, right? I figured out how to play the game. I could get straight A's. I went back and took a standardized test a few years ago. Probably right. No, I had a beard, so it was within the last few, within the last few years. Um, and I scored at a quote unquote sixth grade math level because I don't use that academic math anymore.
No, there's no use for it.
No use for it for me. For
Yeah.
some, for sure there is. For others, there's not. So then that begs all the questions of, well, what does everybody need to know? And is there a time frame around what everybody needs to know? And then what are the things that are, what we call just in time learning versus just in case? You learn it just in time because it matters to you versus everybody learns this just in case it matters someday.
Hmm. Are you a believer that schools in the United States used to be much better and it's slowly decayed, or has it always kind of been similar?
It's a good question. I won't frame it that way in terms of better. I'll frame it in terms of mattered more and gave more intellectual freedom to the instructors. So I think it's a twofold thing. I think there was a time where some of this knowledge did matter more. Some of the knowledge that we really focus on from an academic standpoint, it did matter more, and you weren't going to get it very many other places, right? Rather than school. And the instructors had more intellectual freedom to individualize things and to really go, okay, well, this is what the student needs. That's become less and less true over time. Both of those have. It's very easy now to acquire knowledge. Knowledge acquisition is not something we're struggling with. It's application, it's adaptation
Mm.
because things are continuously changing. Some things stay the same, but some are changing. And the instructors are pigeonholed into a very specific thing in a very specific time frame. Otherwise, funding doesn't come in. So again, systemically, I'm not a huge fan. Literacy rates were higher before schooling was compulsory. Most people don't realize that. Literacy rates were higher in our country before schooling was compulsory.
Crazy.
That means we were more literate. We were better communicators. We were better at writing. We were better at abstracting meaning from text. We were better at it before it became compulsory and we made a system around it. So when you
Mm.
start to look at those things and you start to look at things like, compulsory schooling took kids out of the factories, and we tend to get told, well, yeah, you don't want kids working in factories. But I mean, there was a survey done in like 1909 where they took 8,000 kids and said, hey, how many of you would go back to would rather stay in school if we could pay you what we paid you in the factories. 12 out of the 8,000 said they would stay in school. The rest of them were like, no, we want to go work, man. This is boring us to death.
Crazy.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think we've twisted things in a couple of different ways. So it wasn't necessarily better, it was different.
Yeah, it is interesting too from the point that you started with around allowing people into your child's life. We had
Sir.
we had a pretty viral podcast a few weeks ago, and it was from Jared Hudson. He started the Covenant Rescue Group. They're fighting human trafficking stateside, and he talked about how when you allow a young child to have access to the internet, they can access the world, but now the whole entire world can access that kid. And then you take that context and you walk into school, and even with everything you might be doing to try to protect your kid around phones and social media, if you're a household with like a no phone principle, they're still going to have 12, 14, 16 classmates around them with a phone. And,
Right.
some of those phones are going to have no parameters. And so that point is really interesting to me because as an adult, everyone, talks about the cliche over and over again is you are who you surround yourself with. You are the combination of your 5 closest friends. And you can see that as a tangible, apparent fact of your life, like the people you train with, the people you roll with, the people you hunt with, they do start to really shape who you are and the goals that you go after. But when you walk into a classroom, that same principle can be applied from a negative direction.
It absolutely applies. We tend to believe that young, our young humans, our kids are, it's like they're practicing to be people. No, they're just people with less practice. They're people. So these principles very much apply across the board. And so we have this thing, what you said, and I use that example often, right? And I think it was Covey that came up with that, where he says, they're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I like that. I believe that. I see that. You're also the product of, by the way, the 5 books that you follow the most, the 5 podcasts you listen to the most, the 5 songs you identify with the most, the 5, like there's all these things we could extrapolate, into that. And then somehow we twist that with our kids and we go, oh, wait, well, if we don't have them around hundreds of other young people that we don't know what their background is. We have no idea what they're exposed to at home, what kind of atrocious things they're seeing, what kind of atrocities are happening to them. And then they're pouring into our kids. If we don't surround them with hundreds of those people, well, then they won't be quote unquote socialized. It is quite the opposite. And it's not sheltering to say, hey, I want my young people raised around solid examples. It's called parenting. Being intentional about what is allowed to go into their mind, especially as their mind is developing. It doesn't mean you're creating an echo chamber. You can create critical thinkers, which means, by the way, thinking about your thinking. And you can do that and expose them to different ideas, and you can expose them to different trains of thought, and you can encourage them to articulate their thoughts on something, even if they don't mirror your own. You can do all of that without sacrificing the values of who is around them, so that when they are fully developed, they can see craziness for what it is. It's just freaking crazy. That's our job.
Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big, big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long, long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code Mountain Tough, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. That is so profound, because that's what we've seen, you know, with our own experience of the ability to, like, make sure our daughters are seeing, like, strong men, strong protectors, the other families they're able to hang out with, all of that kind of going through our filter. Certainly seems like it is already paying dividends, and the dividends that we see are their ability to have these phenomenal adult conversations with adults that
Sure.
that a lot of their peers don't. That's one of the kind of the black and white examples we'll see is, like, they'll go to dinner with a group of colleagues from Mountain Tough, a visitor from out of town, and can have an adult conversation with eye contact at a dinner table for 45 minutes to an hour, you know, no devices. And their friends, you know, their friends are really struggling with that can you have a strong communication? And that's one thing we've seen that's just been obvious time and time and time again.
100%. It is the thing that I get the most. My daughter, my oldest daughter's 13. She works 30 to 40 hours a week out at a ranch, you know, around here. And she's got chores here on the farm. We live on a farm too. And she's got chores here on a farm. And she's got her own, you know, schoolwork that she does. She's got businesses that she's starting and running and playing with. And she works out on this ranch. And then she works at a horse camp. And she's also written a couple of books, you know, that are, and I'm saying like 300-400 pages long, right? Each one of these books.
It's amazing.
And all of these things that she is really self-directing a lot of these and a lot of these things. And the lady that owns the ranch, the husband and wife that own the ranch, they're like, we will take her anywhere. She outworks everybody on this ranch, 17, 18, the college kids that come back and work on stuff. She outworks every single one of them. And I'll hear the same thing about my 11-year-old, you know, the gymnastics coach. It's like, man, she works hard and she treats everybody better. American top team out here, my boy out there wrestling and kickboxing, and they're like, dude, he works harder than everybody else, but his attitude is better. He leads everybody. It's that. And it's not that my kids are amazing. It's not that your kids are some sort of unicorns.
Mm-hmm.
It's that It's that we aren't bogging them down with distractions. We aren't bogging them down with confusing garbage that's distracting them and tempting them to go a crooked sideways sort of way. And so they can just let the natural development of a human take place. And I use the example of a garden often, partially because I'm on the farm and I can see into our garden here from my office. And one of the examples I often use is the fact that, we got a bunch of different kinds of things that grow out here and a bunch of different plants. My wife and kids really they do the work on that. But what you have to pay attention to is the environment. You
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to the soil. You pay attention to the amount of sun. You want just enough. You don't want too much. Same thing with water. Enough, not too much. You want good, solid, foundational soil, and you want to make sure there aren't other plants next to the plant that fight it and choke it and kill it.
Mm.
Right? You pay attention to the environment. You don't go yell at the plant. You don't go beat on the plant. You don't go. It's gonna just grow as long as the environment is right.
Yeah,
As parents, that's our job. So you and I focusing on that and all these other parents that are doing that exact same thing, you end up with these young people who are articulate, who are curious,
very
who are
curious.
inquisitive, right? And that's because it's the natural setting. It's a factory setting of a human being.
Hmm.
That's the design, man. All we're doing is letting the design flourish, and we're not adding a bunch of crap on top of it. That's what's going on. And another byproduct of that, it's not just the work ethic and the ability to communicate, but I think you probably see this in your young people too, because I see this over and over again with the families I work with. A byproduct of that, when they're really allowed to lean into that, it's peace, man, up
Mm.
here.
Yeah.
It's a peace. They have a calm sense of peace. But that doesn't mean my 8-year-old boy doesn't mean he's not squirrely and crazy amount of energy. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
you talk to him, you can tell, man, he's at peace.
That's a
I want that.
Yeah, that's huge because that piece is your authentic self, and your authentic self allows you to be in a state of joy because
That's
you're
right.
not trying to live a life that others want,
That's
and
right.
that
That's
shines. Yeah, it's awesome.
always the byproducts, right? Rather, and that's another issue that we see now in schools is there is this consistent, and this is systemic, this is across the board. There is this consistent conversation. It's a conversation around mental health, right? It's an incessant conversation. And so what ends up happening is we've got young people who are going, wait a second, all we're hearing is about mental health and how people don't have mental health and everybody's got bad mental health and bad. And they're going, oh my gosh, I'm going to start looking around like, do I have mental health? Is it in my pocket? Is it in my backpack? Do I have it? Do I not have it? Oh my gosh. Right. And that's not the way it works, right? It's the pursuit of living a life of these factory settings where you are at peace, where you are able to maintain curiosity, where you have productive inspiring relationships, you're pursuing a purpose, you're creating, you're
Mm,
getting out in nature, you're having physical fitness and good health be a part of your life, joy, mental health, byproducts of that.
yeah, yeah,
Simple.
yeah. And the mental health craze right now is only trying to treat these external symptoms coming out of the factory settings. It's not trying to rebuild the factory.
That's right. And it's just incessantly hitting that over and over and over again, where what essentially happens is they start to believe that most people are not mentally healthy. Oh, and it probably includes me.
Hmm. Wild. Let's shift gears for a second and let's talk about some pitfalls or red flags, best practices around homeschool because it is definitely it's a lot of mountain tough guys, a lot of mountain tough families, a lot of mountain tough individuals we work with in the industry from different hunting brands, different fitness brands. It is definitely shifted in our community to homeschool being more of a popular path.
Mm.
And I know that there's still work to be done if we are to choose that path. But what are some best practices around taking the homeschooling route?
It's a good question, man. I think there's a couple things that I see more often than not that are helpful that we need to think through. One, mom and dad need to be on a journey of growth. So, right, we think about homeschool as like, okay, we're gonna bring the kids home, and then what do we have to do to these kids? No, 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 no. What are you doing? What are you doing in front of them? That's a much bigger task to take on and highly impactful for the whole family, right? So the first question is, what are mom and dad doing to move themselves forward? If you can answer that question and lay that out, the biggest secret, and again, we're talking about transfer of a way of life, right? The biggest secret around parenting and home educating well is mom and dad moving their own education forward and simply bringing the family along,
Hmm.
right? Your habits, your traditions, the things that you guys talk about, it's the example first. And the kids are going to fall into that. So it's the most effective way to go. And I use this, example all the time. My 11-year-old daughter, when she was 9, um, I remember very clearly where I was standing in the kitchen, and she comes up, she's like, okay, I was just reading this book. She's like, so now I've got a question. She goes, if the Federal Reserve can just print money anytime they want, why are they so concerned about everybody paying so much in tax? And I was like, that's a great question. She was reading some Tuttle Twins books, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool, that's a great question. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about these systems. Let's talk about the Fed, how it came to be. Let's talk about taxation. And what do we do as a family? Because we're impacted by both of those. So how do we operate as a family, right? That's a real conversation. I put that out. I sent out like a tweet or something on that, and people were like, that never happened. And no 9-year-old asks those questions. I'm like, dude, that's a stupid thing for me to make up. And it absolutely happened
Yeah.
because it's a normal conversation in our house.
Hmm.
So that's the number one thing for people to understand is, what are you making normal? I'm going to go out on a limb here, Dustin. I'm going to go out on a limb.
Yeah.
You tell me if but I'm going to say your children speak English.
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
Why do they speak English?
Because
It's not a trick question
we were speaking it in front of them.
because you're speaking it in front of them, right? Do they speak Chinese?
No.
They don't, because you're not speaking Chinese, right? And you're not speaking it in front of them. Hey, guess what? You also didn't send them to school to first learn to speak that. You didn't sit down when they were babies and go through phonics. You spoke it. They started gibbering and jabbering. You went, okay, yeah, oh, sound this here, sound it out. They kept practicing. You cheered on the failures, even when they failed, right? And eventually they get to the point where they're speaking too. Now, yeah, there's some tactics around showing phonics when you want them to read and things like that. Sure, of course. But the point is, the majority of learning happens just through doing. And what mom and dad are doing and are making normal are the things that are going to be normal. My kids can talk to you about the fact that there are two tax systems in this country, a 1040 and a 1041. I
Hmm.
didn't learn that until I was like 40.
Yeah.
They know it now. Can they explain the whole thing? No, but they understand that that's a thing. And they look at our cash flow from business to the various trust systems to our foundations. And they're like, okay, cool. That's normal for them now. So it can be normal for them as they get older, right? It's
That's
that.
amazing. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I need people to understand. So, what gets in the way of that? And I'd say this is probably the second most important point that I try to talk to families about as they're engaging in this. What gets in the way of that is our religious adherence to what we believe school is supposed to be. We confuse school with education. School to me is the religion, education is the actual, okay, who is this human? Let's pay attention to this human. What do all people need? What does this human inherently love and want to pursue? And it's the cultivation of that, right? It's the plant that is growing.
Hmm.
Religion says, the religion of school says, no, everybody, same thing, same time. That's where people get mixed up is they go, okay, well, you're in first grade. It means you have to do this first grade curriculum, which means you have to do this math today, which means you have to do. That's not necessarily the case. And I've seen a lot of families really start to kind of go at each other because they take on the role of, okay, I'm not mom and dad anymore. I have to be the teacher
Yeah.
who teaches this specific school curriculum. Why do you have to teach that? Because that's what kids learn at this age, according to the government. And I don't want to be weird. And I don't want my friends to say that I'm doing a bad job or my mom to say, right? So it's falling into the trap of always trying to recreate school at home that causes issues for a lot of people too.
Man,
Mom
that's a
and dad
huge
are
point.
pursuing, and watch out for that. You've got 99% of the game covered.
That is so helpful because ourselves have definitely fallen into that second trap of, even though we brought school home, and we I would say that first year we were really bad around just trying to make sure we had great standard curriculums. And now, fast forward 5 years, it is much free form where we're pouring gas on to their passions. But even with that, we're still trying to hold the school system, the government school system, as the standard, where you want to make sure they're on track with their peers or ahead of their peers. And even last year, at the end of last year, we had them take the test to see how they compared to their public school friends. And hearing you explain that now, thinking about it, it's like none of that even matters. It doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter at all, man. I went to a conference, earlier this year and had a whole bunch of amazing speakers that everybody here would know by name, and got to meet with a bunch of them, and went with a bunch of other people that everybody here would know by name, and a bunch of wildly successful, awesome humans, successful by all accounts, meaning, business, but also in their marriage, and, with great relationships with their kids. And gosh, man, not one conversation around anybody's GPA, not one conversation around what was your SAT score. You didn't ask me what my SAT score was to come talk about education, right? Like all of these arbitrary things that we think matter, that don't. And I'm not saying never tackle any academia. I'm not saying that that's the thing. I'm just saying how much really needs to be learned, what part needs to be, what part is needed only if, and what are the things they really need. Just get down into those ideas. Like people always, well, what about learning to read? Yeah, you bet. Learning to read matters. It matters for everybody. I think that's great. And it matters for a million reasons. One is because good books really are designed to change your life, not for multiple choice tests, right? But they're designed to change your life. So yeah, reading matters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what did you do to teach? I didn't teach any of my kids to read. You know what we did? We read to all of them incessantly. We read in front of them incessantly. I'm a voracious reader. I'm always reading. My wife's always reading. So they got the idea that reading is important. My kids, by being read to, learned to read at 4, 5, and 7, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of them, voracious readers, and they love it. And we have great conversations around it. I told you, my 13-year-old's written a couple of books. Like we just made it fun. We made it exciting. We didn't make it a chore. We let it go a little bit on their own time. And we didn't give them other distractions. My young man, when he gets bored, will go outside and read on the porch, partially because it's not an option to go sit down and play video games. That's not a thing. He doesn't have the ability to be distracted because it's not allowed. I'm not vilifying video games. I'm just trying to make a point on, what becomes, again, normal and habitual for them.
Yeah, now he's out getting some vitamin D, reading, getting inspired. It's a game changer.
That's it. And then he has great conversations around it. He comes in, he's like, okay, this is what was happening. This is what was going on. And it's like, cool, man. Okay, let's imagine you were that guy and you had to choose between this and that. Like, what would you have done? Oh, dude, that'd be so, right? It's like having those conversations makes it fun, makes it inspiring, makes him want to continue to read. That's the point. I'm not like, okay, man, so, did that guy wear during this time? Was he wearing a yellow shirt, a blue shirt, a red shirt, or a green shirt? Pick the right answer. Like, what the? We're killing it. We're killing the love of reading the way we do it in school. We look at everything that way. What's the practicality? How do we keep them inspired? That's our job.
Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. So what are you recommending nowadays to families and individuals, folks that are reaching out to you? They're good people trying to make good decisions. They reach out to you and they have their kids in a government school. How do you walk them through their next steps?
Yeah. My job is to ask questions on that to help them any way that I can, right? So I never, and people will hopefully vouch for this, I get a lot of messages and I never go, oh, well, of course you need to go to an Apogee school, right? Like that's never my MO. It's how can I help you unpack this? I understand that so many people, they never thought about it because it's just something we grew up doing. I get that. I understand that you grew up and you're like, man, this is what everybody does. Everybody goes to school and we planned on getting married and just sending our kids to school. And now all of a sudden we're like, ooh, we have two working parents in the household and we're like, crap, but we don't know what the alternative is or how to do this, right?
Yeah.
Or you've got a single mom who's like, I get it now. Also, what am I supposed to do? So my job's always to ask questions and see where are you at and what are you thinking? What are you wanting? How does that differ from where you are now? And can I help you just game plan something that helps counteract or eventually get you to where you want to be? If you want to home educate, but you don't feel like you're in a spot that you can do it because mom and dad are both working, cool, let's unpack that. Can we shift something in the finances to bring somebody home? Is that something you even want? Do you have friends and family that are also kind of in the same boat? And maybe somebody wants to be able to do somewhat of like a co-ops, sort of situation together, and you guys work on it together. Do you have grandma and grandpa nearby where they can take the young people during the day? You can go do your work and come home, and then you focus on things you want to focus on at night. Like there are options. We can get creative, but we got to start with, where are you at now? Where do you think you want to go? That's my job, man. And of course, it's like, yeah, if there's an Apogee school nearby, cool, check it out. By the way, it's not the only game in town. If you like Montessori, you like Waldorf, you like, a Steiner school, you like it, cool, man. Check them out. I'll give you kind of my thoughts on the pros and cons of all of them, but ultimately at the end of the day, you choose what you think is best for your family.
Yeah. And then what are you doing? Like, what are you doing for your kids to make sure that that tribe concept is still fruitful in their lives?
Yeah. It's a good question, man. So, part of when we were in California still, my kids had never gone to a school that I didn't build. So I was very intentional about who the tribe was because they were the people that got into the campus, right? And so my kids were around those people. As we moved out here to the farm, out here in the mountains, it's no different. It's very simple. It's intentional on, okay, well, who are the people that are running this ranch and who are the people that are working in this ranch? Cool, rad humans, same values. Same values doesn't mean you agree on every single thing in the world. It just means you have the same values, right? And they honor hard work and they honor treating people the right way and they honor integrity and honesty and the things that we hold near and dear to our hearts. And so, cool, sounds good. So we've made community with the people from that ranch. We've made community with people at my daughter's gymnastics gym. And again, the gym run by a former Olympic coach. Same kind of values, and the coaches all espouse those and they live by those and they hold those standards there at the gym. Cool. Sounds good. So we tend to find parents around there and other kids that's what they hold near and dear to their heart too.
Yep.
Um, American Top Team out here, same thing. Just huge shout out to the American Top Team crew out here in Nashville. Amazing coaches. I love the old school mentality of you
Hard
better get
work.
after it, or you're
Yeah.
sitting out, or you're out of here, or I love it, man. So that's really where the majority of our community has come from. And then, of course, everything we're doing on Apogee side, we have people in every state. So we have people out here at the farm almost every weekend, not even from around here, that are just coming to visit, that are part of the Apogee tribe, which can't beat that either.
Good
So,
people. Yeah. And
yep.
how would sending your kids to an Apogee school differ from homeschool?
It's a good question. So home education is obviously going to be, it's the flow of the day that you got at home. So, I mean, that's a big part of that. Whereas there, it's going to be more of a structured, if you think of it like I tell parents, think of it like a combination of a martial arts school, a jujitsu gym or a mixed martial arts gym and summer camp. Right? If you think of it more like that, well, you've got coaches that are there leading it, but you have a bunch of other young people who are there, and there is a structure to the day, but the structure is we're going to go have, Socratic conversations and speech and debate over here. And then we're going to go dive into real world projects and build some businesses over here. And then later in the day, we're going to go over here and do jujitsu, and we're going to have a workout, and we're going to talk about the physiology of it all. And then we're going to have some focused academia time, but it's going to be individualized academia. But the coaches are there to help tutor everybody to get to where they want to go. And then everybody has an extended job on campus. If you're older, you're also going to get off campus as much as possible to go work
Mm,
and go dive in. Internships and apprenticeships matter. And so that's basically the structure there. So you just have, 30 to 130 young people operating and working together that way versus
at
it's
home.
the kids at home with the parents. And so neither one is the right way, by the way. We're just trying to be efficient no matter which way.
And how many Apogee schools are in the country now?
We have so operational as far as like launching this fall, meaning they've just launched within the last few weeks, or they're launching within the next couple of weeks. There's about 50, and we have about 50 more that are just through their training and are planning on launching by fall of 2025. So we've got about 100 owners, operators right now.
That's
Um,
incredible.
it's awesome, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll keep it going.
So you almost got all 50 states now.
We're working towards all
Close.
50 states, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's part. So this next year, 2025, we're doing a live event, at least one live event in every state. And so, some states will have to do multiple, but part of it is just to promote what's going on and get some people rallying around the troops. Montana is one of the only states, which is kind of interesting to me, but I also get it. It's one of the only states we don't have
Man,
uh,
we got to
a
make that
campus.
happen.
But yeah, we do need some good folks in Montana. We got almost every state covered. Canada, Australia. We're starting to get some inquiries internationally too. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's cool.
Well, Matt, in our remaining time, I wanted to shift gears a little bit. I know you also are doing a lot of work with men
Sure.
and helping men, and also kind of similar to how we started, wanted to start with what's your opinion on kind of the current state of American men, and then what are you seeing that's changing the game?
I appreciate that question, man. And the impetus to work with the men, and we now added our women's program stuff too, is what we said earlier, right? The best way to educate a young person is to have mom and dad further their own education and bring the young people along. So we want to build these campuses to raise strong young people who aren't all twisted up. And we got, and try to maintain factory settings on this side and then get mom and dad back to factory settings on that side, right? And a lot of that is addition by subtraction and stripping away.
Mm,
Uh, for our men, it's not that much different than our boys. They're distracted. It's a huge part of the issue is they're distracted. They're distracted sometimes by the way it always is, quote unquote, supposed to be. They were distracted by the golden handcuffs of the job that they have that they hate, that's making them, a worse version of themselves as husbands and fathers. Um, and then we culturally tell them, that inherently being sovereign is toxic masculinity, right? And it's
Mm,
that whole ridiculous term. And so we got guys that are not sure where do I go? Because the pendulum swings over here where it's like, no, I'm gonna F this and F everything and F the man, and I'm gonna build my own life. And that's not masculine either. That's a hissy fit. And you
yeah.
got guys that way over on the other side of the pendulum swing where it's the cultural concept of, but we have to be vulnerable has been turned into just sit and talk about your feelings in a therapeutic way that is inherently more feminine and doesn't actually encourage you to take action moving yourself forward. And
Hmm.
so we have so many guys that are on one side of the pendulum or the other versus just pursuing those factory settings of being capable, pursuing something that you care about, and really getting to that sovereign piece to where ultimately you're not doing anything with anybody you don't want to. And so that's the balance we're trying to strike, man. Yeah, we want you to be a good, solid, capable man, physically fit, you bet. I'm not going to pretend a cold plunge every morning and a six pack fixes all of your problems, though,
Yeah.
because you could still be a douchebag of a dad and a husband. So we got to work on that too,
Yeah.
right? It's finding that balance. And I want you to be articulate and I want you to have understanding of your emotions, but not because you're going to, bow down to them, but you're going to understand that they're indicators of something that needs some work.
Hmm.
It's all education. And we can get some more strong dads being willing to be educated and having those conversations. I think it does right by all of us.
Man, that's incredible. And is a big part of that men being self-reliant as well?
I believe that sovereignty. Seth Godin asked me one time. He says, "What should education even be for?" And I'd been in education for. I mean, I'd been in education forever. And, I'd been at Stanford. I'd been in the public schools. I'd been in private schools. I've been like, shh. Nobody's ever asked me that question. And the best that I could ascertain as far as an answer was education should be for the ability to be sovereign and free. Ultimately, build the life that you want to build a life you don't need the vacation from, and to not have to deal with anything you don't want to deal with so that you can focus on serving however you can serve. Like to
Yeah.
me, that's what I believe we're here for, is that purpose. And so to me, that's what education is, man. It is that pursuit of sovereignty. There is some self-reliance that goes in there because what happens when the stores close and the toilet paper is no longer on the shelves and the food's not up? Can you, are you okay? Are you
Mm,
good? Are the people you serve good? It's part of the reason we moved to this farm.
yeah.
Stuff hits the fan, we're okay.
You're okay
It's
for a
part of
while.
the reason we're okay for a bit. Stuff it like financially. Again, we don't control the monetary system. We don't have any. We have no control over that. But we control what we can control to the best of our ability. We operate in the 1041 tax system, which gives us more freedoms on. So it's educating people around that. Health wise, I don't. I mean, that's great that I'm 44 and I still have a six pack is fine. I like the fact that I haven't gotten sick in 10 years.
Hmm.
I'll take that. That matters to me. And I know how to keep my family healthy. Like that matters.
And you got the quality of life, the longevity.
That's the point.
Hmm.
That's the
Man.
point. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
And how are you helping these men? Are you helping them through groups?
Yes, sir. We have live events is something we just started again. We're doing live events every week in every state starting in 2025, but we're doing a couple. We have another one next week in New York. We're doing some live events to get people fired up and kind of an immersive experience, but the majority of it is that 12 months where we bring them through some very specific projects, challenges, and readings. And that means every month there is a focus, there's a spotlight on one area. And sometimes you might be a ninja in that area. Awesome. Help some of the other men who this is brand new to them. And then sometimes that's going to be something that's brand new to you. Lean into the group, and we're
Mm,
going to help coach you and walk you through that. And this wasn't oh, well, Matt and Tim Kennedy thought these would be cool things to do. We went to many guys who we respect and we, okay, for this personal psychology, like we go to Jordan Peterson, we went to Andrew Shaw, we went to Todd Herman. We're like, what could this look like? What are some of the things they should focus on? What are some of the things we can think about? What are some of the things we can tackle to just get ourselves in a better spot and get more educated in that arena? We do the same thing, you know, mental, spiritual, physical, relational with our wives, relational with our kids, family, legacy, self-reliance, leading in the community, the financial game, every single bit of that. We take a month and dissect it. We bring in mentors every week. You've been gracious enough to come in as a mentor for
Mm.
those men. And, you know, these guys that are ninjas and just pour into our men. The men can ask them these questions specifically to people who are further along than they are. And it's a never ending game, man. You
So
know,
strong. Yeah,
it's nonstop. So that's the way we got it designed.
man. I love the work you guys are doing. You guys are serving, changing lives. And by, every family unit you can make stronger, it makes every community stronger, makes that city stronger, the state stronger, the country stronger. There's such an attack right now on the family unit. It's, fatherhood is under attack,
Mhm.
and anything we can do to fight back against that evil is a good fight, because it's the family unit with especially I think with a strong father around is the backbone of our society, and it being attacked right now is a slippery slope.
Agreed, brother. Could not agree more. And you guys are very much on that mission too, man. You know, I'm grateful for you guys and anybody that's on the side of this. And, you know, Tim and I have said day one, I don't care. And Tim, thankfully, is wildly more well known than I am. I have no desire. I don't even like the amount of notoriety that I have. What limited it is, I want Apogee in this mission to be a household name because I wanted to remind people of those values and of that very thing you just said. You know, the family matters, and strong families in our community help build strong communities and getting back to what America could have been, should have been, would have been, you know, that whole concept.
Yeah.
um I don't need a lick of a friggin' human outside of the four amazing people I live with to know who I am past anything, you know, like that's the mission, man. And I know
Yeah.
you guys are on that too, so
Man, I love it. I think that's the perfect way to close, and I appreciate you, brother.
right back at you, man. We got your six. Anything we can do, man. 100%.
Thanks, man. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure. It
That was great, man.
was fun, brother.
Thanks for doing that.
And thank you. Appreciate you. That's great stuff. We got to get out to Montana, man. We have not been out there
Yeah,
at all.
let's get you out here. I mean, we can host you guys at the lab for a live event. We can house you guys anything you need.
So I think for Montana, for our live event, man, as we're scheduling that out, it'd be a great place to go because
Yeah.
every state we're going to, we're doing the live event near a school campus if we have one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Picking one. And like I said, Montana, we don't have anything out there, but that'd be like that's the way to go, man.
Yeah, you could do a live event here. We got this facility, and then Montana State University's 5 minutes up the road.
Freaking awesome.
Yeah, you doing well
So
otherwise?
man, hair's on fire with all this, but it's a blessing, man. I mean, it
Yeah,
is. I got no complaints, man. None. And I'm excited to hear about your journey, man, the homeschool and you guys figuring it out and the change in that. If I can ever help on that, dude, in any way, please, please, please say the word.
I,
Resources is kicking stuff around. I don't, you know, I'm a moron in a lot of things. This is one thing I have some knowledge in, so I'm glad to help, man.
yeah, I might pick your brain on some of that stuff for sure.
Dude, don't hesitate.
Cool.
Ever.
I'll shoot you some texts. Even after today's conversation, I have a few questions for you.
Good.
Cool.
Shoot them over, man. And again, any kind of resources that you need, anything that we've developed on the home ed side, you know, we walk a couple hundred families through that too. We're glad to just, hey, man, this is what we've got, and this is kind of how we tackle it. We do calls every other weekend where I just get on for 2 hours and do Q&A with anybody that's doing it just to help pour in. So if you guys have, if there ever benefits and you and your wife
Yeah.
or whatever want, say the word, man. Done
Okay.
deal.
Cool. Awesome, man. Appreciate you. Let us know what we can help with.
Back at you, brother.
All right. Thanks, man. Bye. What a powerful conversation with Matt. As you know, every single episode, we look for that golden nugget. What's the golden nugget that we can take away, that we can apply practically in our lives today, tomorrow, this evening? There was a lot of gold in that episode, especially if you have kids under 18 at home. That one is packed full. The big golden nugget for me was when he talked about how our kids are following how we educate ourselves. So if we're training at home, if we're reading at home, our kids are going to want to train. They're going to want to read. They're following every single thing we do. So we don't need to think about it being academic all the time. We need to think about it from the aspect of leading by example. They're soaking up every single thing we do. So what are we doing at home? They're going to follow that same path. What a great conversation. Tons of insights there. Remember to check us out on YouTube if you haven't already. That's at Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. And lastly, remember this January at the Wild Sheep Foundation show, the Sheep Show in Reno, Nevada, we do have a very cool opportunity for you guys. It's the best odds on the planet to win a sheep hunt. It's called the Tough Sheep Workout by Mountain Tough. It's got a 500-person cap. We'll be hosting that workout at Sheep Show in Reno this year, giving you a chance to win a Dall sheep hunt. So you're not going to want to miss that. That will sell out. So make sure you get your tickets for that if you have not already. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. We'll see you next week.